Hey, everybody. Happy holidays. Today, we're going to actually launch a thought campaign to you called No Judgment January. For any of you who have ever stepped into the idea, probably all of us, that we need to have New Year's resolutions ready to go for the start of the new year, this is the counterculture. This is the opposite thought process. And I promise you, it's going to be the most effective change you can make for 2026. So with me today, back again, this is Brittany Clark. Hey, Brittany.
Hi, how are you?
Good. I'm so glad you're here. It is always fun to have these tough truth moments with a friend who understands. Brittany, have you ever set a New Year's resolution for yourself?
Oh my gosh, yeah. So many times.
Did you know that statistically, the average New Year's resolution lasts less than a week? And what I mean by that is
Less than a week.
Yeah, we set these like lofty goals, and like the first week of resetting this schedule, a lot of things fall in our lap. And the reality of the idea that we have a real life and real background and real responsibilities that we're supposed to magically pair up with this new goal really comes calling in that first week for a lot of people. I often in the health and wellness field, especially in the physical fitness field, see people putting in the work for about 6 weeks typically. And a lot of times that's with, actual training or actual assistance or accountability, as we like to call it. So today, if you're up for it, Brittany, I want to dig into what makes the difference between a successful new year and another year for the books of lost efforts in goal setting.
Oh my God, yes. I actually was just writing down and trying on my list. So this is perfect.
So you and I have talked about values before. We've talked about things that are really important to us. One of the things I like to do with my husband is when we have a moment in the quiet moments with 2 children, which is elusive at best, right? We will sit together and talk about 5 things that really made the year for us, and that could be a moment, that could be a trip, that could be a project we worked on. But we pick 5 things that really shaped the year we just had in a positive way, in a way that felt like movement or, if it felt a little on the negative side or challenging, we say it that way. I learned from this. So by doing that, by picking those 5 moments, right? Because there's tons of moments in here, but there's 5 that are going to really stand out to you. It really shapes what's important to you. And the idea is that you want to try to add those moments or very similar moments to your new year. Have you thought about it? Like if you had to sit with that for a moment here, is there one moment in particular this year for you that sort of jumped out and was like, wow, that was a big one for this year?
Oh gosh, probably being able to just give myself the grace and patience throughout the whole year, really, with everyone in my house being sick because my son started daycare. So me being able to just push through, really being able to find out what needed my energy and what didn't need my energy. So that definitely, that's huge. That's, and also being able to recognize that within yourself, give yourself a clap, because we get so stuck in the trenches sometimes where we're just focusing on the negative. And especially in the 6th season where you're drained.
I love that you came from a place of energy. That's one of those things. Sometimes I have to deep dive a little further with clients or with friends, or when I'm talking, you knew exactly to go to the energy of the situation, right? What am I giving my energy to? What am I not giving my energy to? Because that's a lot of what we're going to dig into today in No Judgment January. So what No Judgment January is when you tune into the podcast this January, you are going to get to hear from experts. And I mean that in the way that when we are moms, when we're women, when we're professionals, we are the last person to ask questions for ourselves, consider our own health. Like you said, you're worried about giving your energy to your son and your family and who's sick in your moment or at your office probably too there, because you can't turn off the mom vibes, right? But this is really an opportunity in January to hear from experts And I've had a lot of listeners reach out and say, I'm a little too embarrassed to ask my doctor about this. Or this is something I only really talk about with my friends, but we share stories. We don't really have the facts. So in January, we're talking hormone replacement therapy. We're talking GLP peptides. We are talking about real diets, like real diets that work, and about moving your body in a way that's effective for you, your body type, and what's going to move you forward. So I hope you tune in for No Judgment January, because it is purely about the curiosity of your own body and listening to what your body has to say when you ask it these questions. So much of our culture right now is all about what's wrong with us. Every ad you see, everything you bump into is basically what's wrong with you? What are you doing wrong? What is your body deficient in? And why can't you look younger? Why can't you maintain your youth forever? Or whatever illusion of youth it is. One of the things that I love, and we are talking about so steadily this month coming, is that we're not going backwards. Literally looking backwards or stopping and thinking that backwards is your value is the biggest hurdle that you need to jump this year. So if you do nothing else in No Judgment January, say to yourself, I'm not going back because I learned whatever I needed to learn back there. And that's not where my value is. It's past that lesson. It's past whatever I came over. And if you are thinking that behind you is where you need to be, that's your first hurdle. If you can say to yourself with absolute honesty and clarity, and like you said, Brittany, give yourself the grace to know that that lesson, that life, that adventure is behind you. I think Sierra, she's a singer, singer, right? Sierra, she said it best. She's like, all of the time we waste as women thinking we need to reverse, go back, fix something is like white noise in our head that eats up all of our energy all day long, right? I know that you have the same voices in your head that I do. And I was just talking to a nutritionist friend, and she said, just because you are very confident and assertive, it doesn't mean out there in the wild that like this noise isn't happening outside of you. So when you said that you are creating boundaries for your energy, you're a pro, Brittany. Like that, I mean, that is the biggest gift you can give yourself in 2026, is to say, my energy is needed here, and this is my energy. So today we're actually going to dive in and talk about how to do that. Because as a concept, it's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna live up to this goal, this 2026 goal. But if you don't actually have actionable steps, which I'm going to share with you, and what I share with clients, you're doing the same thing. You're setting that impossible trendy goal. So
Yeah,
here's my trick.
So stoked about
Get
this.
out your paper for this one, right? When I'm talking about you, Brittany, when I'm talking to you as a client, there are 3 operating systems or leaders in your body. So we have our CEO. Your CEO is your brain. It is your mindset. It is how you have conditioned yourself to function. So you're talking about that setting the alarm clock, and my prefrontal cortex is telling me, get up. These are the things I need to do, right? Your brain is the CEO. Your brain's giving you a lot of messages. Like we said, there's a ton of white noise going on all the time from external stimuluses, right? But it is your CEO's job to hit that override button. And the way that we do that is by being curious and also being consistent. So we're going to hear that word consistent and accountability and blah, 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 right? Like all of New Year's. But when you hear consistency, I want you to lock into habits, right? I want you to lock into when I start hearing those negative thoughts or those things that are going to take me off, coming back and realizing that your brain, right? Your prefrontal cortex, your CEO needs to make a hard decision. The CEO's job, your brain, has probably the hardest job in your entire body. So that's why we get all the accolades and hopefully the $1 billion salary that you're giving your brain right now, right? And you're nourishing it properly. Because that's another thing we'll talk about in the nourishing process is Are you sleeping? Are you eating? Are you drinking the water? And, I know we get into some real details with our experts this month. Is it a GLP-1? Is it a perimenopause? Is it a diet? Is it a sleep? Is there something we could be doing to not fix you? We're not fixing you. We are nourishing you.
Mm,
I
yes.
can't tell you how many I can't tell you how many ads I see in a day, and maybe that's my Instagram stroll or whatever the algorithm thinks that I am, but it's amazing if you count the number of ads you get in a day. What's the top ad for you, Brittany?
I actually, speaking of my son being sick all the time, so I've constantly been shown the multivitamin ads,
Mm.
multivitamin stuff,
Well,
multivitamin
and the
supplements. Yeah.
algorithm knows this is a funny way because it's actually very telling. The algorithm knows that the best way to sell to you is as a mom. Nobody's selling you
Oh my
multivitamins,
gosh.
right?
Yes.
That's the funniest part in all of this is the algorithm already knows where you're putting your attention and time to. So it is your job as CEO to say, I got to put my mask on first, right? I have to make sure I'm nourished, make sure I'm sleeping. And that is the hardest job as a mom, as a professional who runs their own business, who is working for a big company, as in a lot of the cases, like C-suite, like serious decision leadership making. But if you're not putting your mask on first, and the algorithm always tells the truth. I know it's a hard thing to say, and I won't tell you the weird things that are popping up for me lately, like who's putting mold in my house, mold abatement, right? I think they're just trying to scare me in any way possible at this point. But yeah, I was going to say it's one of those things where the algorithm doesn't lie. And if you're getting ads, look at it, right? Like you're getting ads for your child. You're being targeted as a mother, not as a woman, not as a human being, right? But I do appreciate that it's also targeting you from a nourishment standpoint. So I love that, right? So listeners alike, if you want honest truth and feedback that I have nothing to do with, and you want to know where you're spending your time and attention, check out the ads you're getting. See what kind of ads are popping up for you, because that will tell you more than any value mapping opportunity or test that I can give you where you are putting your energy right now. So, number one is your CEO. If you don't set your CEO up for success, right, by nourishing, sleeping, doing those important things, what I like to call the proverbial putting your own mask on, you and I both know logically we're not helping any other system in the body, and we are not helping our family, friends, or work life. Number two, pretty easy, pretty straightforward, is our COO of the group, and that's your body. That's actually your physiology. That is the operations manager. That is what we like to call the involuntary aspects of the body that are just running on systems. They're running all the time. So your COO gives so much feedback to your CEO if you're willing to listen. So
Mhm.
when you're choosing diet, when you're choosing nutrition, when you're making choices and listening to your body. So I have someone who lives in my house who I love dearly, who for years we've had this discussion, and I know many women and folks have had the same thing, that dairy just doesn't love you, right? Like dairy doesn't love you, and your body keeps telling you, right? Your body keeps telling you that you don't feel great, you're having these symptoms. How long do we have to ignore the emails from our COO, our body? And sometimes that's joint pain. Sometimes that's, so we have to really listen in and hone into our body, and not just take, well, I'm getting older, or, oh, I sat too long, or whatever the case may be. That's temporary. When we get into injury or chronic conditions, inflammation, the COO, your body, your fascia, your muscles, your bones, are talking to you. But we are so programmed, as you know, to ignore pain or click onto our phone, right? Or click onto some other avoidant behavior because, well, I mean, the root of it probably is we don't want to realize we're getting older. There's this mortality aspect to it. But the truth of the matter is, if we are willing to listen to our body, take those emails from our COO and process them in a way that the CEO can be executive function to move forward and support, that's the algorithm for success right there. Now, as a mom, You
Absolutely.
probably see
Yeah,
this too.
I agree.
And perimenopause and menopause, and there's, like I said, we're not going back. This is who we are. And perimenopause, as we're learning, is really like 10 to 15 years. It is not a time where we're, oh my God, for the next 6 months before I jump into menopause. And menopause is actually another wonderful chapter in your life. And we'll talk in great detail, maybe next month. Let's get into that, Brittany. But perimenopause can actually start as early as
Yeah.
35. And these symptoms that we're having are things that people are like, right? Joint pain, particularly shoulder pain, right? Frozen shoulder, joints not wanting to move, sleep changes. Everybody talks about the stress on your relationships and wants to blame it on your kids or your marriage or your whatever. Believe me, communication needs to double down in perimenopause. If I've learned nothing else, and I will say it proud and loud, like what I have learned, because, I want to blame it on postpartum. I'm only a year out from baby, but my communication and my patience and tolerance had to take a real education in the last few years because it's not okay to just be mad. I have to communicate better about what's going on in my body, not just to myself, but to the people around me. Have you noticed any changes? I know you're still like 25, right? Like you're still like young and yeah.
I love you for that comment. That was great.
Yeah.
My son is going to be 2 at the end of this month, so I guess I'm coming out of the postpartum stuff. I'm starting to feel like a little bit better, but joint pain, huge, especially my shoulder, which I've never had joint pain in my shoulder before. And I'm 38. Again, algorithm, perimenopause on my phone all the time, and I'm like,
Yeah. The more honest we can be with ourselves, it's almost as if we're looking forward. Let's put it this way. If someone had told you what life was like as a mom 5 years ago, now that your lovely, lovely child is 2, would it have done you any good?
I don't think I would have done anything different. I think it just would have been like a go with the flow thing. You can't really prep. You can't really
Yeah.
prep,
Yeah, it's
honestly.
true. The actual child, and this is the answer I get all the time, and I came to my own realization. The child itself, you can't prep for. There is no, but like, you're like, I'm going to get a dog. I'll get 3 cats. What, like, it's like we had these great, big, beautiful dogs for years, like when we were married. And I was like, oh, this is like child prep. So if it ever happens, I'm ready. No, that's not true. I mean, other than making sure that you clean up after somebody and feed them, like there is no, right? So the truth is, and a lot of times what I learn from other women, other professionals is there's no prep work for the kids, but preparing your body, right? Being aware that your nutrition, your muscle mass, your flexibility, your like basically anything you could do to nourish yourself before the baby is the one thing that you probably going back would have said to yourself, hey, you're going to have a baby and this is going to take a big toll on your body in the most wonderful way. But you have 5 years now and you need to get your body in the right place. This is no different with perimenopause. This is no different with menopause. You know it's coming. This is what we talked about. We're not going back. This is who we are. And we know this is coming. There is no avoidant answer for this, right? This is a chapter that's ahead of us, hopefully, right? If we're lucky enough, this is a chapter ahead for us. So what can you be doing today for your COO to nourish yourself in a way, knowing that this is the chapter ahead? When we talk about the CEO, the COO, nobody's more important than the other. I think that's the other thing to remember here is that they both affect each other equally. And now there's one other part that maybe you didn't realize is in there. And, sometimes we just think mind, body, wellness, blah, 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 mindfulness, right? What we miss and what a lot of my clients miss when we're having these conversations is your CSO, your chief security officer. So when I'm talking to clients, I'm like, okay, you know who your CEO is. You can talk to that portion of yourself directly. You can talk to your COO or by having pain. Am I feeling anything? Is there anything that I need to be doing differently? Having this weekly, daily meeting with myself. But we forget about the CSO, and that is your chief security officer, which you probably know more as the nervous system. The nervous system is
Yes.
literally how your body relates to your environment. And we don't think about it
Mm.
enough as a part of ourselves because we give it titles like anxiety. We give it titles, right? We give ourselves pathology right away and think that it's a pathology of the body. It's not a pathology. It is a separate C function element of the body. We as young, tiny babies, and we're working on that limbic system that, the different parts of our brain come in to play, to focus. And we learn this as young moms in our development. And if we don't have good regulatory conditioning or experiences as a young person, it really pushes it off into our adult years to do the work, right? And, some people do it through therapy, some people do it through passive or direct, therapies. But a lot of times we're really ashamed to talk about it, or we don't know where we're coming from, or we don't know how to interpret our own feelings or our own responses. So the easiest thing to do is internalize our environment. How many
Mhm.
times have you walked into a situation where someone is short, unkind with you, whether you know them or not, and immediately your response is, what did I do? Why don't they like me? Why?
Yeah, that literally
Why?
is on a daily basis.
Okay. How much of your brain is
I
that
it's
taking up?
this oh my god. It will definitely debilitate me sometimes. I mean, I've gotten better at it, but oh my goodness, I'll spend the rest of the day being like, what could I have done differently? What did I do this? And then my whole day, stuff that I had planned for business, things that I wanted to do, shot because I can't give any of my energy to that because it's me trying to figure out what some guy or some girl that I'll never see again, like why they looked at me weird. And it's like,
It can be paralyzing
why?
if you allow it, right? I heard a great quote earlier. It was like, don't let temporary people become a long-term issue in your life, right? So, like you said, you see somebody in the grocery store, they're staring at you awkwardly. I was just at a holiday party where I was all dressed up, walking down the middle of, Washington, D.C., and this person didn't just gaze, they were staring as if, and I'm like, my immediate response is like, should I go East Coast aggressive with this person or should I be concerned or afraid? I mean, as a woman, we've been given so many conditioned ideas that if a man is staring at us and not looking away, should I be scared? Should I go fight or flight? Immediately, my response is, as I have this 6 foot plus man next to me, right? As if I'm really in some sort of danger. My immediate response, because of the conditioning, because of my CSO conditioning, as a woman, probably of the 90s, early 2000s, right, is that I need to protect myself or block that gaze from, right? So, of course, I, in a polite way, was like, hi, right? And it was really just to break his focus. He probably saw somebody walking down the middle of the street with a bright red dress on and instantly couldn't stop his gaze from being like, that's a bright color. That's a bright color. But me, I internalize that as probably all of us do is, what's he looking at? What's he judging? What's he trying to figure out? What does he want from me? Is he, it's it's one of those things. And that's not just men woman dynamic. This is women dynamic. This is in your own house with your child, right? Like you said, your child is crying, right, at home, and you're trying not to internalize that you didn't do enough or didn't do something to stop the crying from happening in the first place, right?
Yeah.
So much of our life is
Yes.
consumed by a misfunctioning or a overactive and overstimulated
Yeah.
CSO. And what that means is our CSO is given free range, right? It's not being regulated. It's not being questioned. It's not getting feedback from the CEO, right? Or, and that sort of thing. So what it's doing is the CSO is setting off every alarm in your body all day long, right? And whether that's passive from the internet, whether that's actually one-on-one interactions with other human beings, your CSO is running amok and telling your body, telling your CEO that it's in charge. And we're giving it a pathology. We're saying that we have this condition. We're saying we have this disease. We're saying that this needs to be medicated. But if we stop and we're honest with ourselves that if the CEO, the COO, and the CSO work together and are having a conversation whenever the alarm gets set off, how much more power, space,
Yeah.
time, peace will you have in your life?
So much. I would have so much I wouldn't know what to do.
This is what I mean. This is the 2026 gift I want everyone to have. I want them to realize you don't have to pay a fancy coach or whatever the case may be. I want at the end of the day for you to, we talk about values, we talk about all these things, and they're just sort of nuanced because if you don't get your operating systems in direct communication with each other, nothing you do is going to move the needle forward for next year. So my request to you, and sometimes I joke about this, and I have an episode next week with Jane Pilger, who's great, and she's really an eating specialist, an eating habit specialist, and she's had her own battles with binge eating and things like that. But she and I joked that, and I hope you guys catch this episode, it's hilarious. We actually give names, right? It's a lot easier to give names to those functions, to those voices in your body, right? So let's call it what it is, right? Like if Karen is your CEO, right? Or whatever those voices is, it's so much easier to give perspective to what you're doing, what you're feeling, and not feel out of control and exhausted every single day. So I want you to sit with those three members of your C-suite and give them some names. Be funny, be irreverent, be whatever it is. And or maybe it's just something totally off the wall because you're a Harry Potter fan, right? And you're like, it sounds so much like, right, this is my Dumbledore. So what I want you to do for No Judgment January, if you want to be successful, this is a hot take, this is a hot tip. I share this only with clients usually, but I'm going to share it with all of you, is I need you to name your C-suite members. Once the four of you start having regular meetings throughout the day, habit change, big life shifts become possible. But we got to set down that alarm. We got to give the CSO a chance to sit back and only give this much information and then be constructive in how the other set functions work together. Brittany, is there something that you feel like for you for 2026 would be the most impactful piece for you?
I think it would be getting consistent with like movement and working out, because that affects multiple things, because it affects the nervous system. It affects like the way I'm giving nutrients to my body.
I'm glad you said that, because there is actually one hack that I will leave. If you guys have listened this long, I will tell you the number one hack for getting your CSO on board real quick. A lot of times when we have undiagnosed panic attacks and things that in your life, right? A lot of clients I know have the tightening of the chest or their pain between their shoulder blades. And I will not diagnose a client, but I know what they're dealing with. Sometimes it's neck pain. Sometimes it's in the lower back or you're having an actual like frequency of bowel movement. This is a stress response in the body. So we always think that it's something we need to like take medicine for, but the reaction is these are physical manifestations of your CSO going off the rails. The best thing you can do is hold a plank. I know that sounds like an impossible exercise, but it's probably one of the most basic and simple exercises you can do, because you can do it from your elbows, you can do it from your knees, you can do it from so many different positions, because it's not specifically about showcasing your strength. When you do a plank, you're forced to meditate, right? You're forced to like be inside your own body, because whether you're getting pain response or fatigue or whatever it is from your body's giving you actual feedback, right? Your brain is either telling you, stay in here longer, or it's telling you, I can't do this, I can't do this. But what happens is your central nervous system has to take a break in that moment, right? Because your other two systems are now giving feedback and talking to each other. So if you are up for a push-up, that's the next level, right? To that, if you're up for a push-up, your kid's screaming in the background, you've just had a terrible meeting with your boss, whatever the case may be, do a plank and do a plank for 10 seconds, do a plank for 20 seconds, do a plank for 30, whatever you have available to you. It is forced meditation in the most physical and spiritual form you can give yourself, because you have to leave your environment, right? What's around you, in order to be successful in a plank. I hope this
That's a
helps.
good
I
one.
hope
That's
you
good.
share this tip with everybody. And from now on, it's like I said, it's not just hashtag no judgment January. It's going to be, plank meditation. It's going to be hashtag not sorry 2026. This is you taking control, being the C-suite of your life. Please share this episode with a friend who really needs this pep talk today. Brittany, thank you so much. Happy New Year, everybody.